let's talk about a man whose personal letters ended up becoming something of a manifesto for Western civilization. This is a story about a radical transformation, about a single, shocking encounter that didn't just change one man's life, it literally set the world on a new course. Everything hinges on this incredible reversal. You see, the story doesn't begin with a follower of Jesus, but with one of his most brilliant and, frankly, dangerous enemies. So let's start with the man himself. So who was this guy? His name was Paul. And you have to understand, in the first century Roman world, Paul was a total insider. He was a Roman citizen, a Jewish scholar trained at the absolute highest level, and he was zealous for the law in a way that defined his entire identity. I mean, the contrast is just stark. Before this transformation, Paul hunted the early followers of Jesus. He wasn't just, enforcing some rules. He was defending an entire social and religious order. He saw these people as heretics, he oversaw their arrests, and he even approved of their executions. But then a blinding collision with the risen Jesus on the road to Damascus didn't just alter his career path, it completely rewrote his entire being. The guardian of the old way became the messenger of a completely new one. Now, to really get Paul's message, we first have to understand the problem he was addressing. His letters aren't just about starting a new religion. They're about restoring a relationship with God in a world that is fundamentally deeply broken. For Paul, it all goes back to this one ancient story, a story that started in a beautiful garden where humanity walked in perfect harmony with its creator. But that story was fractured. The relationship was broken by pride, and the world was splintered by what Paul calls sin. And here's the thing, for Paul, sin isn't just a list of God things you've done. That would have made sense to a Roman. You just pay off your debt. No, he says sin is an active power. It's a force that lives inside of us, an enslaving condition that holds all of humanity captive, dragging us down and keeping us from the very life we were created for. So, if the problem is that deep, what in the world is the solution? This is where Paul introduces a radical concept, one that turns our entire idea of justice completely on its head. He calls it the gospel. But listen, this isn't just news or some new philosophy. For Paul, the gospel is the very power of God, unleashed into creation. It's the force that heals what's broken, rescues the enslaved, and makes all things new. And this right here is the heart of his message. In a world that only understood justice as either punishment or strict legal purity, Paul presents God's justice as something else entirely. It's restorative. It's not about demolition. It's about renovation. It's God's incredible plan to fix a disfigured world and make it whole again. And it all centers on the cross of Jesus. Okay, so here's how the logic plays out. Paul explains that the first man, Adam, brought sin and death into the world. Then the law came along, not to save us, but to act like an X-ray, exposing just how deep the sickness of sin really went. But where Adam failed, Christ, the new Adam, succeeded. He brings life, and through his obedience, sin's reign is over and grace takes the throne. It is a complete and total reversal of human history. So, what does this actually mean for people who believe this message? Well, the consequences are staggering. This isn't just about getting a ticket to heaven when you die. It's about a brand new reality that starts right here, right now. And this leads to maybe the most important distinction of all. God doesn't just forgive our sin. He goes infinitely further. Think about it. He doesn't just pardon the prisoner and send him on his way. No, he brings him home and calls him family. We are not just pardoned, we are adopted. And just look at what this adoption means. Believers become heirs of God, full-fledged members of his family. The cross doesn't just save a bunch of individuals, it creates an entirely new humanity. And this was social dynamite at the time. In a world completely divided by Jew and Gentile, slave and free, this new family just erased those lines. The people of God themselves become the temple where heaven and earth finally meet once again. This is Paul's incredible vision for the church. It's not a building you go to on a Sunday. It's a new Eden. It's a community where the life of that original garden, that unbroken relationship with God, is being replanted and is starting to grow again, right in the middle of a fractured world. Now, all of this sounds grand and theological, right? But Paul is intensely practical. This new identity, this replanted life, it has to look like something. It demands a completely different way of living. So these are the new ethics of the garden, and they are a direct challenge to the values of the Roman Empire.
Instead of conforming to a culture of power and self-advancement, you offer your whole self as a living sacrifice. Humility, which was seen as a weakness, now replaces pride. You willingly give up your personal freedoms, a core Roman value, for the good of the people around you. And above all, love becomes the ultimate law, the one thing that fulfills every other command.
And all of this brings us to the absolute core of Paul's manifesto, a thought that echoes through every single one of his letters. It's this radical idea that trying to add our own efforts, our religious background, or our social status to what Jesus did on the cross completely misses the point. The hunter, who became a herald, discovered a simple, world-changing truth that turned every human system of merit on its head. Jesus plus nothing equals everything.